On behalf of ViacomCBS and the ViacomCBS Veterans Network, welcome to our virtual panel series, Thriving Beyond Surviving, a conversation about post-traumatic stress and resilience. Thank you for joining us this evening. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to be together with you. And we are so fortunate to be joined by a very special and distinguished panel this evening who will share their inspiring stories. This is National Post-Traumatic Stress Awareness Month, and so it is fitting, especially given the fact that this is the week of Memorial Day, that we would take this opportunity today to have this very important discussion about this very important topic. Judging from our special guests, I know that we will be inspired, we will learn, and we'll be moved to action. For our audience, please know that this is interactive and we will welcome your questions during the Q&A session. At ViacomCBS, we never forget our obligations to the more than 22 million living veterans in the United States, especially the nearly 2.6 million who nobly answered the call of service after the events of September 11th. They and their families face significant challenges as they transition to civilian life. On this Memorial Day, we paused to remember and give thanks to the 1,197,124 of our fellow citizens, including the 7,050 post-9/11 veterans who sacrificed all and who gave their last full measure of devotion and service to our nation. We also pause to remember their families, whose grief and loss are unimaginable. We will honor their memory with our actions, and we will never forget the terrible and great cost. Freedom is not free. The ViacomCBS Veterans Network is proud to continue the great legacy of those who came before us, and in ways big and small, to do what the company has always done by making an unwavering commitment to assist our nation's veterans and their families. We are here to support their mission. Every day is Memorial Day. Every day is Veterans Day at ViacomCBS. It gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce Brigadier General John Prey, the President and CEO of Operation Homefront. General Prey has served as the President and CEO of Operation Homefront since 2015, and before that, he was a senior executive at the USO. At Operation Homefront, he leads an amazing and dedicated team who oversees the fulfillment of the organization's vital mission to help build strong, stable, and secure military families so that they can thrive, not simply struggle to get by in the communities they have worked so hard to protect. General Prey honorably and with great distinction served our country for over 45 years. He was commissioned in 1980 through the United States Air Force Academy and commanded at the squadron, group, and wing levels. He served as an instructor, pilot, and flight examiner on numerous aircraft, and his staff assignments included Deputy Executive Secretary of the National Security Council, where he served as the director of the White House Situation Room, an executive officer for the commander of the United States Special Operations Command. He credits his parents for instilling the importance of service to others and love of country, two core beliefs that have formed the moral compass that has guided him through all major decisions in his life. General Prey's father was a career military officer in the United States Army, and he served during World War II and survived both the Bataan Death March, 3.5 years as a prisoner of war, and the Korean War. General Prey often says that his mother was the one who deserved special credit for all that she had to endure in her husband's very long absences and the many uncertainties that characterize military life. There are very few leaders that I've had the privilege to know that have the level of devotion and care for our nation's military, its veterans and their families. We are so proud to support his mission, and we are so appreciative that he was able to join us this evening. My dear friends, please join me in welcoming General John Prey.
Hey, good evening, and thank you, Rich, both for your service to our great nation and the warm introduction. I am honored to be able to provide a few opening remarks for this incredible group of panelists, and I'm really proud to represent Operation Homefront and the military families that we serve in this important national discussion, as it is truly about thriving beyond surviving. Our stated mission at Operation Homefront is very closely aligned to tonight's theme. As Rich noted, we seek to build strong, stable, and secure military families so that they can thrive, not simply struggle to get by in the communities, our communities, they have worked so hard to protect. I believe most, if not all, would agree that it is a national tragedy when service members, after courageously serving our nation, find themselves struggling to get by or struggling to make ends meet. It is even more tragic when these short-term struggles derail any hope of a stronger, more stable, and more secure future. As you'll hear shortly from the distinguished members of our panel, helping this very special and deserving group of our fellow citizens in their time of need is both possible and necessary. You'll hear a common theme underscoring their remarks, a clear call to action, one that all Americans must recognize as our collective responsibility to do more than hope things get better for those who have done so much for all of us in our nation's time of need. Helping our military members and their families survive is not enough. We need to take the extra steps to help them have the opportunity to thrive. Simply put, they have put forth their best efforts on our behalf and have earned and deserve our best efforts in return. At Operation Homefront, our financial assistance and transitional housing programs are designed to help military families manage their short-term financial challenges and thus avoid a never-ending series of crises that force them to live in a survival mode and rather puts them on track to be able to live in a thrive mode. Every year, we work with tens of thousands of military families who are facing a variety of challenges. Through all of our programs and services, our caseworkers work closely with these families to provide short-term relief and build long-term resiliency, both needed to chart a course to a brighter future. Not simply measuring inputs, activities, and/or outputs, Operation Homefront is an outcomes-based organization. We ask those we seek to serve, our military families, if our programs actually help them be stronger, more stable, and more secure. I'm proud to report we know, not just assume, but know our programs work, as 97% of our clients agree or strongly agree with this statement. I am also proud to report that with the unwavering commitment of many like-minded partners, including ViacomCBS Veterans Network and every organization represented here this evening, we will bring much needed attention to the challenges that military families face throughout their service to our country, those they face as they transition back into their civilian communities, and more importantly, provide tangible ways for Americans to help them thrive. I am completely confident that by working together, we can ensure our military members and their families can start strong during their service and stay strong throughout their journeys. Because at the end of the day, strong military families make their communities stronger, and these strong communities in turn make America stronger. I would like to thank the ViacomCBS team for inviting me to be a part of this important conversation. I am now honored to introduce Erik Bartell of Bravo Sierra. Erik is a father, husband, entrepreneur, fitness professional, and U.S. Army veteran. He served 5 years on active duty with the 101st Airborne Division as an infantry officer, and then continued to serve his fellow veterans as a leader in the nonprofit arena. He's run the most elite training facility in New York City and is a founding member of Bravo Sierra, the military native wellness and grooming company. Erik will now lead a breathing exercise using the simple but highly beneficial box breathing method. Erik, over to you.
Thank you, John. That was utterly kind of you, and it is an honor to be introduced by you. So I'm really excited to open this up, and I'm really excited that we're able to actually do a breathing exercise to open up something like this, because as we talk about thriving beyond surviving, I can't think of anything more important than breathing. And so, as John alluded, my background is in fitness and wellness after I got out of the military. And that led me down many paths of diving headfirst into books and certifications. And the one thing that interested me the most, and that everything really came back to physically, but also mentally and spiritually, it all really ties into breathing. And so one of the things that I'm going to lead you guys through is called box breathing. And it's probably one of the simplest forms of breathing you can do as far as a technique. And yet it's extremely impactful. There's research that supports just practicing intentional breathing of any type, but one such as box breathing will actually regulate your autonomic nervous system. It heightens your performance and concentration, but more importantly, it can relieve stress and anxiety. And so I'm going to lead you through a few rounds of box breathing. At the end of the day, there's many ways to accomplish it. There's many levels. Even if you're a beginner, I don't want you to be intimidated. Really, it's just starting, and just like anything in life, you're going to get better. So to start off, what I really just want you to do is we're going to slowly exhale through our mouths and get all of the air out of our lungs. And then once you've exhaled completely, we're going to inhale for 4 seconds through our nostrils. So 4 seconds is complete. You hold it for 4 seconds, filling that air in your lungs and your abdomen. And then you release and exhale back out through your mouth for 4 more seconds. So that's one round. I talked you guys through it. We're going to do a couple rounds, and we're going to really get a sense of calm as we get ready for this panel. And so if you guys are all ready, and I don't think there's any questions on this, but I'm happy to talk us through it and do the counting for us. We're going to do 4 rounds together as a group. And so get ready and breathe out through your mouth, everything out for 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hold it for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And breathe in through your nostrils. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in through your nostrils. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. In through your nostrils. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. We're going to breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And that is the gist of it. I wish I had a much calmer voice that was nice for you guys to hear, and actually maybe some calming music in the background always helps. There are apps for this. There's YouTube videos. At the heart of it, the key is to drown out everything that is surrounding you and just live within your breath for however many rounds you want to do it. But that is what you focus on. You bring everything back to your breath. You bring everything back to the counting, in the sense of like meditation. Your mind might start wandering, and you just bring it right back to your breathing. You bring it right back to your counting. And it's a method to really, especially if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, and whatever's going on in your day, that you can take 2 to 5 minutes and really just reset yourself. And the research, as I said, it's just utterly supportive of that. So thank you guys for breathing with me. It is now my honor to introduce our moderator for the evening, Vladimir Duthiers. He's a CBS News correspondent. He has won a Peabody Award. He has won an Emmy Award. He's been on the ground covering everything from the protests and the aftermath of George Floyd to embedding in with the U.S. Air Force unit on the DMZ of North Korea and South Korea. The man is a legend in my eyes, and it's utterly, I'm grateful that I get to introduce you to the panel. So thank you.
Thank you, Erik. That was amazing. I really, really appreciate that. I think all of our participants do as well. I'm certainly going to implement it in my daily meditation practice, because I've never had the opportunity to think about holding the breaths as you take them in and exhale them. So thank you very, very much for that. And thank you to all of those of you who decided to take some time out of your busy lives and your busy days to join us for what I am certain will be an amazing panel, because we've got an amazing group of panelists to share their experiences, to share their truth with you. And it is my honor to be a part of this in a small way, to be able to be the conduit that allows you to hear from them and to learn from them, and hopefully apply some of the things that they've learned in your own lives. And so without further ado, let me just sort of introduce the folks who will be participating with us. And what we talked about is introducing our esteemed panelists and giving you a sense of their bios, where they've been, where they've come from, their journey. And then after I go through and introduce all of them, we're gonna kick back up to the very first panelist and talk about what this all means to them. And from there, we will have a discussion, and it'll be a robust discussion, and we will include your questions and your thoughts, and we will share them with the panelists and hopefully get some insights from them. So it's my honor, it's certainly coming off the back of Memorial Day, to be here with all of you. So let's get started. So our panelists include today Dan Nevins. He is a former U.S. Army veteran. He is a speaker, and he's also a yoga expert. So we're going to talk to Dan. We're also going to speak with Taniki Richards. She is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Tyler Gray is also a U.S. Army veteran, but is also a part of SEAL team on CBS and Paramount Plus. And we've got Antoinette Wallace with us, who is a former U.S. Army National Guard veteran. And finally, Richard Timberlake, a USMC veteran. Welcome to all of you. It's such a great honor for me just to be in this chat room with you. I wish circumstances were different and we could be all in person, because I think that that would even be more powerful and impacting, but we're gonna try to do that here virtually, as we have for the last 16 months or so. Thank you very much, welcome. So as I said, let's start first with Dan, and I'm going to give you a little bit more insight into Dan and his background and his journey. And Dan, I'm going to ask you to take it from there and talk to us about how you've been able to achieve all that you've been able to accomplish since your time in the U.S. military. So Dan is a professional speaker, and he's been inspiring audiences all around the world with his message of perseverance, resilience, and hope. And he's been doing that for more than a decade. He's a highly decorated soldier. He was severely injured in combat while serving in Iraq in 2004. After an IED detonated beneath his vehicle, he lost both legs below the knee and lives with a traumatic brain injury and the emotional wounds of war. But Dan credits the Wounded Warrior Project for his successful rehabilitation, which instilled a can-do attitude and positive outlook. More recently, Dan has uncovered the life-changing aspects of yoga, which has enabled him to heal from the invisible wounds of war that sometimes get overlooked when we talk about what our veterans are going through. And so, Dan, let me just start in that short bio that I've introduced you from. Talk to me about how, I think a lot of people, even those who have served, even veterans, will wonder what kind of fortitude it takes to recover, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and psychologically from the loss of your legs while serving your country in combat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vlad. Well, first, I just have to say this, is that every time I hear myself introduced as a yoga teacher or yoga expert, it blows my mind. Never would have thought that this would be the place that I'd be sharing that sort of story about myself. But to answer your question, the type of resiliency and fortitude that's required, I actually believe we all have. And for those who may be like, oh my God, so for me, 16 years ago, a little over now, I lost both legs below the knee, lived with a traumatic brain injury, and then left untreated for a long period of time, where those invisible wounds of war that are often concealed and often not talked about. what I noticed is the more work I did on myself, for myself, starting with sharing my story, like getting it out for the first time, which is like an ongoing catharsis for me as a professional speaker and storyteller. But I just realized that the resilience is there. We just have to, as cliche as it sounds, remember it. Like, just remember that we are this powerful creation, that we have the ability to overcome and rise above anything that's put in our path, and not to listen to the negative voices that sort of thwart and constrain our life, the things that keep us from healing, from being more resilient, from stepping into the problem and dealing with whatever's in front of us versus shrinking and contracting from it. And that is what I learned through the power of yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. So I stand here lucky that I'm standing. Two, that I've had great people. No one does these things by themselves. As you heard in my bio, I credit Wounded Warrior Project because they were the ones that met me at my hospital bedside with a backpack and a promise that whatever I needed, whatever my family needed, they'd be there for me. And that's exactly what they've done. And along the way, I got to become a leader in the organization and share the things that I've learned with other people so that their journey might not be as hard as mine was, and the people that before me were, and the generations of warfighters before me had it. So it's this sort of sharing fire, pass the torch kind of mentality of, hey, the generations before us dealt with a lot of things, maybe different, but all too familiar with what this generation of warfighters is going through. And that the resiliency is there. We had it through all of our training in the military, and all we have to do is remember.
That is powerful. And Dan, I'm going to come back to you and talk to you about how to give us some tips and insights into confronting and ultimately living with that trauma so that you can thrive and persevere. It's, I think, really important. I know you've got a lot to share on that. All right, let's talk to Richard Timberlake. He's a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He was deployed in support of OIF from March 2007 until March of 2008. And what I really find fascinating about what Richard is doing is he is focused on mental health and veteran focused on mental health initiatives. And he's been doing that for quite some time. So Richard, take me through some of the things that you experienced as a warrior in combat and how you've applied that to helping others, and what made you decide to dedicate a portion of your life to helping others persevere and thrive.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So my time in combat dealt mostly with trying to help the Iraqi people set up different centers and different social systems, and where they could have places to go. So resources, a women's center and children's center. And from that time, being able to see the developing, just the front row seat of watching these things come to fruition, and how to engage people and how to show them that this could be a better situation. That's where a lot of it started with me in Iraq in 2007. From there, moving on to 2009 in Afghanistan, there was many different operations where we were trying to offer resources to villages such as wells and things like that. And their opposition was a little standoffish. And so that took me back a little bit and helped me realize some things that we're doing and some things that we're perceived as. And from there, after getting out, the whole resilience thing started with trying to wrestle with what we had done, whether kinetic or combat, or whether it was good and positive for the people. That's where that differentiation came in with me. That's where I had to decide where to go with that.
That is fascinating. And I want to hit upon that when we come back to you and talk about some of those things that you were able to share with others, specifically as it relates to your time in Iraq and Afghanistan, doing the job that you were doing, that you were tasked to do. Next up is Tyler Gray. Tyler is a former U.S. Army veteran. He is a U.S. Army veteran, not a former. I keep saying that, but you are all not former. You are veterans of our armed services. And sometimes the journalist in me I want to make sure I dot every I and cross every T. I'm overly cautious when addressing folks. But Tyler, you are a veteran of the U.S. Army. You were an assaulter with the U.S. Army's Tier 1 counterterrorism combat unit, where you deployed numerous times to Iraq. You took part in various special operation combat missions, including high-value target raids. Prior to that, you were a U.S. Army sniper in the elite 2nd Ranger Battalion, HUA, where you were deployed as a sniper team leader to Afghanistan, including a 4-day reconnaissance and interdiction mission along the dangerous Pakistani border region. Now, Tyler, I don't want to give away too much of your bio because from that sort of high-speed, low-drag resume of what you've accomplished in the military, talk to me about being this sort of badass special operations soldier who then confronted some of his worst demons in some of the things that that afflicted you once you returned home. Take it from there, because and talk to me briefly, because we'll come back to it, about how you were able to channel your experiences into what you're doing now.
Thanks. Yeah. I think it's the easiest way I can say it, and I think you actually saying former is critical, and I'll get there. But, you know, I can say for myself, I got injured, I got medically retired. And, you know, what I did in the military is everyone's the same in that my identity was tied up in what I did. So, you know, depending on how there's a million different definitions for PTSD and what do you need to be resilient about. I can tell you, for me, when I got out, my biggest problem was a loss of identity. The job was my life. The job was my identity. And when I didn't have that job anymore, I didn't know who I was. And regardless of the job that you did in the military, I think everyone from every service has that in common. You cannot do that job without it becoming who you are. And by that definition, when you hit former soldier, former Marine, former airman, former sailor, you don't know how to be a former. You don't know how to be a veteran. You know how to be active duty. That's who you are. So basically, I think a lot of people, you know, they try and be a veteran like they were active duty. And you can never become someone else or someone new if you're trapped in who you were. And, you know, so I think for me, that was huge, and we'll come back to it. But the key to resiliency, and I couldn't agree more with what Dan said, is, you know, for me, moving on was accepting that I no longer did that job. I was no longer that person, and I had to be something new. The good news is I had to also realize that in no way could I ever get back to what I was. And that really hurt me. I need to get back. If I could just get back to who I was. And then I realized it's impossible. And once I accepted the impossibility of it, I was free to create whoever I wanted to be.
That's so fascinating, Tyler. And I'm going to come back to talk to you about this because what you said is really interesting and remarkable to me. And I wonder if you ever had thoughts of what you were like, perhaps in high school or before you joined the military, and the life that you led then. And then when you joined the military, all of you experienced a transformation. And, you know, my very limited time and experience with the U.S. Army at Fort Bragg, I remember trying to navigate an obstacle course and thinking I couldn't do it. And somebody, a drill sergeant, came over to me and said, you know, like 1 million people have navigated this obstacle course, and, you know, you can do it. It isn't built to not be navigable, you know? And so this notion of transforming yourself started early, even when you were in the military. So I'm going to be curious to talk to you about your remarkable transformation from whatever you were doing before you joined the military to this special operations soldier, and why it was so difficult to retransform yourself once you came out, which you ultimately were able to do And that's what this is all about, perseverance and thriving. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing this discussion with you, Tyler. Thank you. Next up, Taniki Richard. She enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 2001 and immediately loved it. She cherished the family-like relationship she created with her fellow Marines. She also enjoyed all of her duty stations. Really? All of your duty stations? That's fantastic. That's remarkable. And she, even in her bio, she talks about loving her time in Iraq because everything, quoting her here, everything made sense in Iraq. There was a routine, you had your friends, and you knew what you had to do every single day. And that was something that she embraced. When her deployment ended and she returned back to her base in North Carolina, that is when things started to get worse for her. The stress of the combat during her time in Iraq and some of the things that happened to her, which I'll let her go into, really led to a dramatic shift in her thinking about her life, almost to the point where she might not be here with us today sharing her truth if things had gone another way. Taniki, welcome. Talk to me about that and talk to me about how you've been able to overcome some of these incredible challenges, horrific challenges.
Thank you, Vlad, and thank you to the panel of amazing people on here. I'm really honored to be here. I'm going to jump right in and to say there's a difference between your personality, and usually I'm a bubbly person. I'm happy. I love people. And so that wasn't an issue for me. What happened was the lack of character development. So for me, as a leader, being a sergeant in the Marine Corps, we are taught to train and to lead. And when I realized quickly the things that I had gone through, being raped in the military earlier on, and then going into combat, not expecting, what I expected was to have a safe mission flight. But that's not what happened. And why would I even expect that? Obviously, we're in combat, but I think what I felt was a failure on my part. I failed my job. I failed the Marines that I was supposed to be leading because I didn't perform in the way that the Marine Corps taught us. They taught us how to shoot. They taught us how to charge the hill. And in the time where I felt like I should have fought for myself, I should have fought that corporal off of me when I was date raped, and I should have not passed out on the aircraft when we were being shot at, while my other Lance Corporal was there, and we had to transport secret gear from one operation base to another, and I felt like I just totally came out of the fight. So for me, suppressing each incident was the worst for me. I carried that pain for many years. And when we came back from Iraq, because I had a lot of personal issues with my family members, and I didn't feel like I had the support, or I couldn't talk to anyone because I didn't think that they would understand what that meant to feel like you failed. And not only that, but not being yourself, not being the leader that the Marine Corps taught me to be. And then having to join another unit who was not deployed with me. I loved Iraq because I did have folks who were out there that looked out for me. It wasn't just, hey, you carry your pack alone. We carried each other in some way, shape, or form or another. And when I didn't have that support coming back, struggling with PTS, post-traumatic stress, I didn't even know what it was. I just had the nightmares and the flashbacks when I'm driving, and I'm thinking I'm losing my mind. And when I tried to go to my command about it, others who, some of them never even deployed before, they didn't even consider that a female Marine could have combat stress and forget things and needed assistance in certain areas where, as before, I learned my job really well. And now I'm struggling. I can't even remember codes. I was an aviation electronics technician. So I'm thinking I'm really what I like to call my slip is showing. And you know, when your slip is showing, you got to pull it up. But at those times, I felt like I could not pull my slip up, and I slipped up. And it was a moment where I felt like, I don't even think it was a woe is me moment. I think it was more of a solution moment. I could not carry the pain anymore of the shame that I felt from my military sexual trauma, and then the shame that I felt like the unit that I was with, they had a certain perception of me. And because I had seriously lacked in confidence at that point, I allowed what was happening to totally rip me apart. And when I had a nervous breakdown on the job, whereas my leaders could have, we have those training talks where you see someone with the signs, you know, if they look suicidal or if they are acting out of character, there's an emergency procedure where you would take them aside and get them the assistance that they need. I was the sexual assault victims advocate, and I was also the suicide prevention facilitator, and all that training, and I still couldn't help myself. So I felt like in that character development, I was lacking there because I wasn't a leader for myself, the way that the Marine Corps trained me to be. And in that moment, when I had the nervous breakdown on the job, I decided to try to attempt suicide. And I'm so glad that I'm here today, because I wouldn't be able to share my story. That's the amazing part. I'm the one sharing my story today, but I still needed more. And that was, even though I decided I needed help and I needed to speak to someone before I lost my life completely and tried to attempt again, when Wounded Warrior Project came and met me, I was already out of the military, but I was still carrying a lot of that pain and shame, and I wouldn't come out the house. I didn't want people to say, thank you for your service. I didn't want people to know that I was medically retired. I was ashamed of my service. And even though I was proud when I came in back in 2001, right after September 11th, I was proud to strap up my boots. I was proud to wear my uniform. I could not bear that pride any longer. So when Wounded Warrior Project came to me, they offered me a place where I didn't have to feel ashamed anymore. There were other veterans there who had similar stories, or even more graphically detailed stories that I'm amazed that they could even share their story. So I was inspired by them and inspired by the group to come back to a place where I know what I did for my country was something to be proud of. And sharing my story was something never to be ashamed of. And so what I learned most about being with Wounded Warrior Project is, if you want character development, they will set up things that, even with an Odyssey, or, you know, they even had empowerment sessions that I was able to partake in, because that's what I craved. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get back that confidence again in myself. And they offered that to me, along with counseling, and where I could actually share the nitty gritty, ugly details and not be judged. And when I became able to say that, I was able to now mentor other veterans in that same process. And I just want to say this, what I realized about the responsibility for my healing was the truest part of being a leader. And I think that was the tipping point for me to be the leader that I truly always wanted to be, that was always inside of me and that needed to develop.
What a remarkable story and a remarkable journey. And, you know, I'm so grateful that you survived your intentional crashing of your POV into that hole at your base, and that you're here to share your truth with us and with those of us who are here to hear from you. And you know, I know that so many of our veterans were not as fortunate as you to find their way back. And so just in that, you are phenomenal and remarkable, Taniki. And I'm really honored and grateful to be just in your virtual presence. And I'm going to talk to you because I think what I'm hearing from all of you is this running thread about the ability to compartmentalize your experiences and still carry on and do the mission and get the mission done while oftentimes feeling broken or hurt inside. And I think that that's something that those of us who've never been in combat, or those of us who've never gone through some of the things that all of you've gone through, will be able to benefit from and understand. Antoinette Wallace is next, and Antoinette is a Army National Guard veteran. She joined the National Guard in the wake of 9/11, like so many of our young people did. They never perhaps dreamed that they would join the military, but seeing our country under attack in such a brazen way galvanized her to join the Army National Guard. And 20 years before Antoinette was in the military, the National Guard rarely deployed to do the kinds of missions that we then, in the wake of 9/11, asked our Guard units, our Air National Guard, our National Guard, and Navy and Air Force Guard units to do. And so that was already unique, being in the National Guard and being deployed. And Antoinette, you talk about not only the stress of combat, which is an enormous stress on anybody, let alone our highly trained and professional military, but also you, like Taniki, had a sexual assault when you were in the military, which you did not feel comfortable sharing with your superiors. Taniki's was also not reported. And so talk to me about your journey, the moment that you looked into the abyss with all those things that you were going through, all the trauma that was churning through you, and how you came out on the other side better for it.
Okay, thank you. So I joined in 2002, right when I graduated high school. I grew up in Staten Island, New York, which had the front, you saw everything front and center. We lost a lot of people in my neighborhood. It was just a very difficult time. Before that happened, I never actually thought about joining the military. The next step would have been to go to college, do the normal kids thing. So I joined in 2002, and I deployed in 2004 to Iraq. And it was something that I don't think I was mentally prepared for. The amount of trauma and seeing so many awful things was, I wasn't even 21 yet. I was still underage, and I couldn't even go to a bar when I got home to celebrate with my friends. This assault, I think, was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, for lack of a better term. Amongst all the things that were going on, to have somebody who I thought would have my back, somebody wearing the same uniform as me, that should be protecting me, causing me more harm than somebody that was outside of our unit, a national. So I felt really vulnerable, and I didn't know who I could trust anymore. I just woke up every day in Iraq just praying to just get out of there. I couldn't wait to, I would tell myself, as long as I get through this and I get home, everything will be okay. Everything will go back to normal. All this pain I feel and all this anxiety and distrust, that'll all just melt away. And then I'll go back to, like Taniki said, the bubbly social person that I was prior to that incident. However, when I returned back to New York after my deployment, it was not the case at all. I was basically not wanting to leave my house. Socializing with my friends that I grew up with was something that was no longer enjoyable to me. And I realized that I needed help. But it took me a very long time to actually accept that. So I just decided to be very, very busy. I know that idle hands gets my mind turning. And if I'm so busy that I can't think about any trauma that I've experienced, then I'll be able to, stuff it down and it'll go away. I always had this hope that I wouldn't have to actually address what was going on internally, that something would just make it go away and I would feel better. So, I went back to school full time, and I was working full time, and I just kept, going, not having an opportunity to actually address how I was feeling inside. By the time I was 26 years old, I had already earned 3 degrees. I was a doctor of pharmacy, and I paused for a moment, and I'm like, okay, so I'm successful now. I'm a successful woman, and everything should be healed at this point. However, it actually got far worse when I became less busy than I was before. Just going to work and not having any other obligations of going to school or doing homework. it led me to really have no choice but to face how I was feeling. And there was one day that I got home from work. I was still living with my parents, and I, walked into their bedroom and crying, sobbing. I was like, Mom, Dad, like, I need help, and I crawled in bed with them, between them. And, to go from, a veteran to getting a doctorate and being, in my mind, reduced to this little girl again, crying, in my parents' bed, it was really eye-opening. I know at that point I knew I had to do something. And I ended up getting help at the VA for a couple of months, inpatient. Processing the trauma was difficult, but it was in a safe place with clinicians everywhere. So the clinical aspect was definitely addressed properly. However, what I was really missing was the interactions with veterans that I haven't had in such a long time. Like I kind of shut that part down of my life because it was too painful for a while. So being able to go and find Wounded Warrior Project and make these amazing friends that I feel like have my back. I don't feel like they're that person in Iraq that is wearing the same uniform as me that's out to get me. I have this incredible support system now. And so does my family. They do a lot for my family as well. They have like family wellness things. And my parents have now also a support network, which is incredible because they just were at a loss with me. They didn't know what to do. Neither of them had served. Nobody in my family had served either. So it was just like, what can we do to help you? Just tell us. And I just didn't know how to verbalize that. So I think that going from that point, 2002, 9/11, and then to this point today, it's really come full circle. I didn't work for a couple years because I just wanted to focus on my recovery, and I am back to work. I've been participating in vaccinating patients since December, and I really do feel like I owe Wounded Warrior Project the credit for giving me that confidence to go back out in the world and to be a productive member of society. And though I have that in the back of my head, the trauma, resilience is something that is incredible. Being able to adapt to a situation and come on top of it, that hopefully, like when veterans hear a story like that, they know that there's help out there, that it's not something that they have to do alone anymore. Asking for help, we don't like to ask for help in the military. We want to be strong and self-supporting, but it's okay to ask for help. And I've learned that with Wounded Warrior Project, and I'm very blessed to be here today to tell my story. So thank you.
Wow, what a remarkable story it is. Thank you for sharing it with us. Your smile is everything. And listening to you as you started to talk about your trauma and ending it the way that you did, talking about vaccinating people, which as you're saving lives again, just like you did when you were serving. Thank you for that. It's interesting to me, and we're getting questions now that are coming into me from the chat. So I'm gonna, while I throw this question out to the group, I'm gonna be looking through some of the questions that are coming into us, and they may be for the group or they may be directed at individuals on the panel. But Dan, one of the things, I don't know, when I was a kid in high school in the mid 80s, listening to all of you, there was a commercial, and maybe you all might be way younger than me. Maybe General Prey remembers this, but there was a commercial for the Army, Be All You Can Be. And I will never forget it because the commercial was an 82nd Airborne guy jumping out of a plane, right, in full BDUs, and then landing on the ground and then transforming into a businessman. And like, in other words, like he lands on the ground and all of a sudden he's like, BDUs, magically disappear and he's wearing a business suit and he's like giving orders to like his underlings. And that was the Army pitch, right? Like, you're going to seamlessly transition from being a soldier and deploying all over the world to now doing, whatever you want to do in the civilian world. We're going to show you how to do that. And it'll be completely seamless. But when I listen to each of your stories and you, Dan, listen to everybody's truth, what's the one thing, if you had to pick one underlying thread, to me, it sounds like although everybody's experiences are unique to them, clearly, and everybody's trauma is unique to them, there are some underlying themes that are kind of universal in what I'm hearing. What do you see?
That's a great question, Vlad. What I see are people getting confronted with their own experiences and then making a choice, right? In the case of Taniki, making the choice at the last minute to realize she didn't make the right choice originally. And then everyone's saying, like, coming to this precipice of, okay, I need to do something. I need to act. I need to take action, whether it's to go see a therapist, see a professional, talk to someone, reach out to a veterans network, nonprofit, something. And then that is the beginning step of just creating this sort of like aura, this bubble of resilience that will like continue to guide your path and inform your path to like more and more improved healing. And Vlad, I'm a lot older than you. I was born in 72. So
I got you beat, brother.
I do. Oh, well, man, well, you look much younger. I'll say it that way. But I remember that commercial vividly. And if only that transformation was that easy for everyone, that'd be amazing.
Right, because Tyler, I mean, you know, in reading through your bio and understanding your story and your truth, you've been able to, you have a remarkable profession now, but it wasn't an easy transition. And you talked about how your identity was tied to being a soldier and not, you were a special operations soldier. And that's a very specific task that you're tasked with in the military, and how you had to sort of come to grips with that as you persevered and as you came out of that. Just how difficult was it? I mean, just describe for our audience, how low did it get for you?
I mean, it got pretty low. I got blown up, which is why I got medically retired. I mean, I went through 5-ish years of surgery, rehab, surgery, rehab, surgery. It's about a 5-year process, which was extremely miserable. But, you know, again, I agree with everything Dan said. We speak the same language. Everything for me changed when I made a choice. And on that note, I mean, this is obviously about resiliency. I think a good way I would say it is resiliency is a choice. And resiliency, the word, in my opinion, at least what I used to think it was, and what I think a lot of people think is, there's almost this like, resiliency, and it's spoken as if it's some inherent genetic, trait, or even just something somebody has from childhood. And it's absolutely not true. Resiliency is a choice. It's developed like any other skill in life. And for me, when I chose, and I'm going to, and I think it was Taniki who said this, or it might have been Antoinette, but, another word I use for resiliency is rapid adaptation. It's really adaptation. And for me, when I chose, like I said earlier, when I said, you know what, I kept thinking I need to get back to where I was. And I wasn't saying exactly I need to get back to that job. I was saying I need to get back to that person. And when I finally accepted that person was gone, and it's literally impossible, then I realized that I was free to, create the next version of myself. And when I made that decision to do it is when my resiliency started building. Because, there's a common saying that, you talk about, be all you can be. There's another saying about, life is about finding yourself. That's not true. Life is about creating yourself.
That's powerful.
And the difference seems when you, the language we tell ourselves is so critical. When you say life's about finding yourself in a very subtle, subliminal way, you're saying that it's not really your choice. You're finding a path that's already laid out. When you say life is about creating yourself, you're saying, I choose. And I think that's a very critical distinction. And resiliency is there, again, like Dan said, it's there waiting for you when you choose to go down that path.
That is so, I find that absolutely remarkable. So we've got a couple of questions, and they're directed specifically at Taniki and Antoinette, but there is one general one. I'm going to toss that to you, Dan, because I think it sort of, it goes to what you've been working on ever since you were discharged. What is the biggest public misconception about PTSD? That comes to us from Betania Diaz. What would you say is the biggest public misconception about PTSD?
Great question, Betania. I think the greatest public misconception about PTSD, and more importantly, the people living with PTSD, is that they're like on the edge of maybe doing harm, or in some way that they have this sort of picture they've painted of someone that's not stable or okay. And that could be the situation in many acute cases. But mostly it's just people really, well, it's the brain doing what it's supposed to do, right? To inform you how to keep yourself, to preserve life. And then the brain doesn't know the difference between the hostile environment where you were from and then this environment that's happening right now. The brain's doing powerful things. And I think this is another misconception, is that see, PTSD, for instance, I don't have PTSD, never had it, probably never will. And I only say that because it's a diagnosis that someone has to give you. I took the long way around for finding healing because I refused, because of like some ego thing or my man card, to talk to someone. And then so I thought I could do it all alone, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And so for anyone who is watching who might relate to that, is that, yeah, go talk to somebody and take the step, make the choice to go do something about your well-being and overall health.
Taniki, this question comes from Alzada Moran. She asks, did you feel that you had anger issues before you were diagnosed? Were you clinically diagnosed? And what was, if you had to share your mental state of mind, I guess, before all of this happened, how would you describe it?
Well, before all of the situation happened, I want to say all of the things were, terribly bad. I mean, I think some of the things that happened with me had silver lining, and I guess that's just a change in perspective. So I won't say all the things that happened to me was just, oh my gosh, it was just tragic, but it would have been tragic had I not changed my perspective on it. So I did have anger, lots of anger. And most of that it was internal. A lot of times people think that when you're assaulted or you're sexually abused or sexually harassed, you tend to have all this anger or want to get them back for what they did. I didn't have that. I actually internalized it because I blamed myself for allowing it to happen. And it took a lot of therapy and a lot of time to build that confidence, which I mentioned before, the confidence in knowing that situations happen the way that they happen, but not necessarily they're my fault. But how do you come out of that? How do you now take what happened and build a foundation through confidence, through teaching, through support? And one of the things that I think was critical for helping me with my anger issues was to refocus that anger into now having a purpose. Because a lot of times I was frustrated because I could not be the person that I wanted to be, because I carried so much of the shame and the guilt and anger to myself. But once I realized that, you know what, there's more to me than just rolling over or feeling like I gave up. And so when I started in Wounded Warrior Project to take on a mentorship role, I had to first be willing to be led. And then through that, willing to be led and willing to take on some of those courses that they were offering, I was now able to give advice to other folks and now work in my community. I'm on the board of one of the Crown Academy to help other teenagers. I speak to others at school. So it goes beyond just working with veterans for me now. I started my own company, jcinspire.com, and offered services that allowed me to give some more insightful one-on-one with other veterans and other professionals. And I also speak, thanks to Dan, who helped with that. He created a program for us to come together and share our story in such a unique and effective way that it impacts thousands. And so I'm really grateful for that, because I've used those life skills now to actually help be a productive member to society and be back into what I really love to do, which is helping people. And so one of the things that I want to say about that anger issue thing is when you place the responsibility to heal on other people, you become a burden to those people. And if you take on the burden of carrying your pain, you'll never heal. And you have a responsibility to yourself to heal. When we were in the Marine Corps, one of the things that we did in training was called a buddy drag. So if you have a member or a friend or family member who is trying to support you, you don't dig your heels down. You kind of you put your feet on the tippy toes while they're pulling you. And it's okay sometimes for someone to be there to carry you, but it's not their responsibility to carry your pain. It's not their responsibility to carry your trauma. It's you. You have to be proactive and willing to get up every single day and fight for yourself. Fight against that anger, fight against that pain, and then repurpose it and use it for something greater than yourself. And I think that's what helped me the most, and hopefully that will help someone else.
I know it will. Antoinette, James Garisi asked an interesting question. He says, thanks for sharing your story. Speaking out on what you went through seems much harder than sharing a combat-related incident. I'm guessing he's speaking specifically of your sexual assault, which is, one of the, I think, difficulties when talking about trauma and how to persevere and thrive beyond that trauma is, as everyone's been talking about, confronting it and meeting it head on, and ultimately even learning to embrace it. But I think very few people will be able. Many veterans who were in combat will be able to talk about the actual combat-related incidences that may lead to some trauma, but not everybody has survived a sexual assault. So how do you juxtapose the two? And was there one that was, as James is asking, easier to confront and another much harder? Or was it in the whole, you looked at it in totality?
So that's a great question. I think when I was feeling the way I did in Iraq, and when all these things were happening around me, it kind of came like intertwined, like just one experience after another. It just seems like I just can't catch a break out here. Can someone just throw me a bone? But I think the most traumatic part of my experience probably was the sexual assault. However, there was a lot of other things that we have to go through as well. My commander and my XO, executive officer, was killed on the same day. That's our leadership. That's who we looked to lead us. And those two leaders were no longer with us anymore. So having that happen and having a feeling that I could actually have reached out to my commander and tell him that I was assaulted and trust him. And then it's kind of just ripped away from you. And then you have nothing. So I think talking about when you ask what was more traumatic, it's really hard to put like a gauge on which one was worse. When I got home from Iraq, everything just felt the same. It was just a numb feeling. It wasn't something that I could say, oh, today I'm very upset about the assault, but today I'm missing my commander, or I'm missing the people that I unfortunately didn't make it home with us. So it's a very hard, I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't really have a way of gauging which one was worse to talk about. And it also kind of changed with, the company I was with. Right. I didn't really want to talk to, other males about an assault. However, I've actually had conversations with Taniki. She's a survivor as well. And, I could tell her the nitty gritty and I don't feel judged. I feel embarrassed sometimes, but she gets it. She understands what I'm saying. And I don't always get that from like my civilian friends or whatnot. But so in conclusion, it's hard for me to determine which one was more traumatic. But I'm just happy that I'm here today and I have the resources that Wounded Warrior Project has given me. I have like a network of women that are all survivors. And, you know, when we have a rough day, we just pick up the phone and we call. They could be on the other side of the country. And I've met them through Wounded Warrior Project. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry that I couldn't give an exact answer.
No, I think it's a perfect answer, because I mean, I think that, you know, the way I'm listening to all of you, it would be hard for anybody to pull one thread out of the cloth of your experiences and say, this is the one that is most painful to me versus this other one. It's the totality of your experiences that go into making you who you are in life in general. And I'm sensing it's going to be the same when you go through trauma. And that, what you said, Antoinette, is sort of interesting to me, because Richard, in your bio, you talk about creating safe spaces for helping to create safe spaces for veterans. And that is fascinating to me as a civilian, where there's been a marked change in the way the US public thinks about veterans and thinks about those who've served in the wake of 9/11, pre 9/11, you know, going back to, let's go back to the 1980s and the 90s. You know, there were people who certainly respected soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen if they were wearing the uniform, but it wasn't fetishized the way it is today, where you've got a lot of people that are constantly thanking you for your service, and you hear a lot of lip service, you know, thank you so much, and you get the seats on the airplanes, and those are all wonderful things. But when I read that you say that you endeavor to create safe spaces for veterans, that leads me to believe, I don't want to say that people or institutions or organizations are just paying lip service to our servicemen and women, but it makes me wonder, why would you need to create a safe space if we in America supposedly love our veterans and respect them and want nothing but the best for them? Help me understand that.
I think a lot of the time, some things can be overwhelming, especially with organizations or things that have a lot of robust programs that want to help offer and kind of scare people off. A lot of veterans. With myself, it was trying to find people I trusted. I went into volunteering, and then in the volunteering system with the people who I trusted, I found out of RGH, Resilience Growth Here, and that was just a small thing, that organization that helped me go, well, if you like this, you can find something else. So that safe space came when I realized, all right, there's a lot of loud out there organizations ready to take in veterans with problems, but they're not speaking to the guys in the woods. And by guys in the woods, or people in the woods, are the people I like to mention as people that aren't speaking up, just really quiet about their traumas or what they're going through. And it takes time, it takes trust, and it takes the ability for just a little bit of support for that one person, whether it's from a family member or from the support agency itself, organization, just a little bit of push to go, hey, try it out. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's where I was able to try something different after my own, trusting vetting, which is basically, can I get along with this person? And then after that, it was more about, okay, so if I'm this shy type of veteran, how can I get these other guys out here? How can I get these people to say, yeah, I trust this space. I can come out here and not have to worry about different things. And what I do is I work with gardens, so they're wide open spaces. And those are spaces where we can get the guys, men and women, anyone, any veteran out there to go get their hands in the dirt and do something different. It doesn't have to be gardening. It could be setting up anything, just something that has to do with people that need help in the community. Because the one thing that veterans do well nowadays is try to integrate into community and become better citizens to help. And that's something that it's tough for them because they think you have to have some sort of political backing, some sort of big support system. But really all it takes is going out there and just offering a little bit of help with those that you feel safe with. And that's what broke me out.
Wow. So it's interesting because there's sort of an interesting question that I think dovetails with what you were just talking about. And I'm going to toss it to you, Dan, although I welcome everybody to chime in on this because you've all had contact and have been affiliated with the Wounded Warrior Project. But Dan, Sarah Deanna asks this, and this sort of breaks my heart here, but she says, when I was a patient at the National Naval Medical Center, a person from Wounded Warrior Project was passing out backpacks at the Marine Corps Liaison Office, and they told me that I couldn't have one because they were just for Iraq wounded Marines. So my question is, who is Wounded Warrior Project for? I have PTSD from chemical exposure at my MOS school and was sexually assaulted while I was an outpatient at the hospital, but I never reported it either. Is WWP for Marines like me?
That is absolutely heartbreaking. So Wounded Warrior Project exists for all post 9/11 generation veterans, wounded, ill, or injured. Wounds you can see, wounds you can't see, even non-combat related. So this generation of warfighter or service member are eligible for Wounded Warrior Project programs. And I don't know the details of what happened at the Bethesda National Naval Medical Center. However, it shouldn't have happened like that. And so Wounded Warrior Project is an amazing organization that has so many, like a broad array of programs to connect, serve, empower warriors and our families. And so again, I just want to reiterate, all post 9/11 generation veterans, wounded, ill, or injured, are eligible for the programs and services of Wounded Warrior Project.
Excellent. I think we're almost at the end of our Q&A portion, but I do have a question for you, Tyler, before we wrap up. Your job now with ViacomCBS has you serving not only as an actor, which is pretty cool on Navy SEALs, but also offering guidance and advice and technical consulting on our shows. I get that you will probably say that, it's a TV show and it has very little to do. I mean, we're all in this safe space here where we're talking to veterans here who no one, I think, who's been through what you've all been through is going to watch, one of our shows and say, yeah, that's really how it happened. But is there some part of it that often takes you back to your time in the military? Or have you even been able to compartmentalize your job? And that's the question for everybody, I guess, the jobs that you have now outside of the military. How much of what you learned, the positive things that the military gave to you are applied in your daily lives now, regardless of the trauma that you all suffered?
Well, I can tell you for me, and actually this kind of goes together well with something that you threw out there that I wanted to mention, and that is compartmentalization is great while you're in. While you're in, you need it because you can't think of the long-term effects because it'll affect your survival in the moment. When you're out, compartmentalization is the worst thing you can possibly do. And the reason is you can't separate different parts of your life, different parts of your mind, and different traumas in different areas. You need to be integrated and everything has to flow into one. The decision, and several people have said this, I can't remember if it was Antoinette or Taniki, but the decision to process trauma is the start of resiliency. For me, what I like about what I do now is I get to put other people's traumas out, in the world. I directed an episode that had, sexual harassment in it that just came out this season. But I mean, that was in our show. And it was portrayed, as accurately as we can portray. I mean, it's not going to be, again, it's a TV show, but if you get the emotion right, the details don't matter. That being said, I think we do a pretty good job of the details, but the core of the show.
It is a hit show. It is a hit show, Tyler.
No, and the reason why, in my opinion, is look, I and all the other veterans that work on the show, we're not the first people to tell a show or a movie that, what we think about things. I would argue that this show is one of the first to truly listen and just say, we'll do it that way. And that goes from CBS on down to the showrunners. But where I'm going with this is as much authenticity as you can instill in a show is fast roping. As far as me, like having, not flashbacks, but I don't ever, it's hard to take combat on TV seriously when I'm in a scene when I can see somebody walking around with sushi. It's pretty hard to feel like you're going to die. But that being said, all joking aside, I mean, there is times where I'm going to get on a Black Hawk and I smell the Black Hawk fumes. Yeah, it takes me back. Last thing I'll say, what I love about the show and what CBS has allowed us to do is, does it look cool, fast ripping out of a Black Hawk? Yes, it does. And it'll always look cool. And that's what every military recruiting commercial is, the cool stuff. What I am proud of and happy about our show is we show the cool stuff, but every single character's home life is being slowly destroyed because of the job. Mm. And that is an honest portrayal. That's what the recruiting commercials don't have in it. And as long as you show both sides of it, and this is the cost, people are still going to raise their hand knowing the cost. But it's a lot more accurate, and it shows an honest portrayal of what that job and service to your country will do over time. Actually, the last thing I'll say is it's called SEAL Team, but it's really, we're using a SEAL team as a conduit for universal military stories and even more universal human stories and human connection through those things.
That's very cool. This is a comment. This isn't a question, but I think you guys will all appreciate it. It comes from Lisa Philippon, and she says this. She wants to voice her appreciation for this program, and she writes this. I am so grateful for the courage represented here on this panel. I'm a Gold Star mom, and I work for Resilience Grows Here, which is funded by the Movember Foundation. It's a tremendous honor to work with our veterans to assist them in finding the resources they need to enhance their lives and bring awareness to our communities about our service members, veterans, and military families. On a personal level and on behalf of other Gold Star families, the well-being of the brothers and sisters in arms of our fallen loved ones is a strong hope that we carry. Our warriors that return are a lifeline to us. They hold the memory of last smiles, last laughs, last words, and in some instances, last breaths. Our hearts break for the negative and painful experiences that our service members endure. We love you and your ability to find resilience and safe spaces when you come home. So that is Lisa Philippon who wanted to share that. And there's a question here. Again, it's not a question, but it's sort of, I guess this is for the group, for all the people who are listening and watching us now. And it says, as Dan, this comes from Michael Linnington. As Dan reiterated, we serve all post 9/11 wounded. So I guess looks like Michael is with Wounded Warrior Project, and he says, an area of significant focus the past few years is those exposed to toxic exposures while deployed and in training CONUS. Please register as a WWP alumni at our Resource Center page and become involved with injured, ill veterans just like you. We're also looking for veterans to advocate on Capitol Hill for exactly the illness that you speak about. This is for Sarah, who asked that question earlier, the Marine veteran. Thanks. My email, and he provides an email here, which I guess we'll share with you at some point, Sarah. Sincerely, Army Strong and Semper Fi, Lieutenant Colonel, Lieutenant LTG. All right, Michael Linnington, U.S. Army CEO, WWP. And somebody, Tony Hansen, writes, Tyler, I'm proud that SEAL Team addresses the issues 22 a day PTS and TBI. So I just want to, before we turn it over to Dan for our final breath exercise, I want to just say thank you for, there's just another question. I want to make sure we get everybody. There's a bunch, hang on here. This is from an anonymous attendee. I guess maybe, Tyler, it's for you. It says, it is no secret that the military, most especially special warfare operators, are programmed to use stress inoculation to help ward against the active stressors of their job requirements. This is a stopgap against the pall of traumas that they will combat both physically and mentally. What methods or programs would you like to see added and employed to aid in their readiness and sustained mental health? That's probably a good question to end on for everybody. But Tyler, I'll start with you.
I think the easiest way, to not get too specific, I think the best thing that could happen, and I'll preface it with this, why can the military not fix the veteran problem? You get that a lot. Why aren't they addressing it? And it's a very simple answer. The reason the military doesn't address the veteran problem is because it's ran by people that are in the military. They've never been out.
Point. It's a good point.
How could they possibly know what the problem is? They're all still active. So in my opinion, what the military could do would be, and it's actually started in law enforcement with PTS, which is law enforcement in the academies. Certain departments obviously have started incorporating, all the different traumas and all these different stress techniques from the beginning. Hey, you don't have it now, but these are the things to look out for. So to me, it's really about awareness starting early on in the military. And I think that would help the process greatly. Again, I think it was Taniki said she didn't even know what PTS was until she got out. That's a problem. And the only way that you can, the way to increase mental resiliency is to start it when you're in.
And I'm sure because we had the CEO of the Wounded Warrior Project, General Linnington, commenting that that's probably something that he's well aware of. But it is remarkable, Tyler, when you put it in such stark terms that that often, and it's something that I had never considered, the fact that oftentimes these are being thought, these issues, the challenges that our veterans face are being thought of by people that are still in active duty military, which I guess would be problematic. So does anybody want to, just before I wrap it up and toss it over to Dan, does anybody else have a final comment in just 20 or 30 seconds? And you just raise your hand and I'll come right to you. All right. Taniki, sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you're offering, there's not many pieces where, I feel like more women need to speak up. More women veterans need to speak up. So if the platform is there, hey, ladies, we got to speak up. So one of the things that I is near and dear to my heart is sharing the stories of military sexual trauma in such a way that people understand how to come out of it. How do you overcome the trauma that has devastated your life, but also changed you probably in your personal life as well? Because a lot of times we look at just women being helpless in that way when you're sexually assaulted, but there are also veteran males who are being assaulted each and every day in the military, and their stories aren't being told. I know it's give or take. This is more than 30 seconds. So Vlad, give me 10 more seconds.
No worries.
Give or take. I think it's a collective effort for all of us to, if you haven't gone through that, truly take the time to listen and not shy away from the hard stuff, because it's in the hard stuff. It's in knowing what your veteran has gone through is how you can truly support them, even if you don't understand. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for just sharing your truth and your experiences, your trauma, but also your successes and your perseverance. It is truly remarkable. And I feel that if we, not just the public, but even us as reporters, as journalists, if we did a better job of showcasing and highlighting what you and so many veterans, remember there used to be in those old film noir movies and those old detective novels, there are 8 million stories in the naked city, right? And, each of your stories, I mean, if we think about them and we multiply them by the millions of veterans who have served this country honorably over the course of many, many years, it boggles the mind that we are still at the point where our veterans so often suffer needlessly when they shouldn't have to, in a country that is the richest and most powerful country in the world, with supposedly the most transparency, that many of these issues that you and so many others are facing are often not brought to the light. When you have a United States senator, a former fighter pilot, who shares her truth for the very first time about the things that she has gone through, being a sexual assault survivor, and everybody's mind is blown because Martha McSally is talking about something like this. When you think about that, she's not the only one. She's just the one who was bold enough and courageous enough, or the one who felt that she was able to find a safe space to share that truth, so that others might be able to do the same. And so, I will endeavor to continue to do my part, but it's been an honor to share this time with you. And so, Dan, I will turn it over to you for our second exercise to wrap up our panel.
Thank you so much, Vlad. And so I think, when I look at every single veteran on this panel, what I see are veterans who are found another way to be of service, whether it's getting vaccinations, telling the real stories, but boiled down into a television show, for gardening and speaking out and being a part of our community, like Taniki. That's one of the best ways to get involved. The second, to start that path of healing. The second is meditation. Now I want to lead a quick meditation for everyone. And if you haven't done it before, I promise I'll be very gentle. And I want to say this because Tyler brought up a really great point, just really quickly. He talks about the beginning of resiliency is that choice to start addressing the traumas. But a lot of people don't know where to start. So I got 3 really quick tips to set people up to create that environment in themselves where they might be ready and willing to tackle that. So connect with somebody every day. FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, the possibilities are endless. Face-to-face, phone call, whatever it is, just to tell the people you care about that you love them. Be brief, be bright, be gone, so they don't trap you in some crazy story. Second, and I think this is the most important because it's the most actionable, move your body with intention at least 30 minutes every single day, no matter what. Whether it's 10 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time, 30 straight minutes, move your body with intention, whether that's whatever you're able to do in your physical state, move. Movement is medicine. And lastly, take on gratitude as a practice. Whether that's just acknowledging the things you're grateful for every day, or for me, I have a journal right next to my bed. I just do 3 bullet points of what I'm grateful for that day. And it sets me up for a great night's sleep and a great morning. And those practices will help begin to open up that path to real healing and true resilience. All right, so meditation, really quickly. Everyone just take a seat where you are. Try to find the balance between being comfortable and being alert. And close your eyes. And if you're someone who has resistance to closing your eyes, do this just as a practice. Try closing your eyes. Again, if it's not right for you, then open them and stare softly at one point in front of you. And just notice your breath. The breath moving in and out of your lungs, whether it's through your mouth or through your nose, just notice. And then add the quality of intention to your breath. Full, deep, deliberate inhales through your nose. And deliberate, full, complete exhales out through your nose. Continue breathing with intention and then notice your feet. Wherever they are, if they're present or not, just notice your feet. And then with your next inhale, move your awareness up to your knees. Notice and acknowledge both knees. And with your next inhale, move that awareness from your knees to your pelvis, your center of gravity, your anchor down through your seat into the very planet that connects all of us, all living beings. And with your next inhale, move that awareness from your seat all the way through your lumbar spine, your thoracic spine, into the space right behind your heart. If thoughts come up, let them go, and then bring all of your attention back to the space right behind your heart. Again, if thoughts come up, let them go and come back to your breath and the awareness on the space right behind your heart. And with your next inhale, move your attention up to the space inside your head. And now I want you to just do this exercise for me. I want you, especially considering the time that we're in, the distancing, the separation, whether it be shutdowns or social distancing and maybe not the ability to travel, I want you to just imagine someone that you wish you could be with right now, whether they're still here or not. See their face. See them seated somewhere. And then from that space behind your heart, just reach out to be with them. Your eyes see theirs, and theirs find yours. And without saying anything, just offer these words to them. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free. And see them turn to you. Their eyes meet yours as they offer these words to you. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you be free. Take a deep breath in, pull your shoulders back. Exhale, empty. Open your eyes. Thank you, thank you. If you're not a meditator, that was your first meditation. See, it wasn't so tough. It's not so bad. And yeah, meditation practice will change your life. And thank you for the opportunity to share that with everyone, the panel. So everyone, thank you for allowing me to be here. And for everyone watching, thank you. And Vlad, I'll turn it back.
That was amazing, Dan. Thank you so much. That was really, really remarkable and incredible. And I've never had it described to me in such a way. So I'm eternally grateful. Okay, that wraps it up for us. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all so much for submitting your questions. I hope you found it informative. We do these regularly, and so hope you'll join us for the next one. Thank you very, very much. And thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Rich and to General Prey. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one.